Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing well. This week in our lecture about anxiety, I took a lot away from it, and some of the main things that I did and appreciated about what Dr. Park spoke on as far as anxiety was the practical aspect of it. And so just like we've been discussing in class about the psychosomatic unity, and just like the care for the body, the care for the soul, she spoke on in a practical way for anxiety, which was helpful for me in the sense of going out for a walk, going and doing something that you will get some type of exercise to um, just kind of let that adrenaline out, because sometimes when you're anxious, it there's a lot of adrenaline that is pumping in your body, and so to be able to release some of that in good and healthy ways was helpful. Even the practical side of sleep, and just how she talked about from John Calvin, how he said that tranquil labor to which men of faith apply themselves in obedient trust, um, that that sleep is actually us trusting God. And I just thought that that was such an interesting take um, on even just when we wrestle with anxiety and when we're able to rest our bodies and to go to sleep. That's just ultimately us trusting the Lord. Something else I took away was her talking about how anxiety can be produced out of fear of man. And so she even spoke on the fact of when scripture talks about how we cannot serve two masters, how we need to fear God instead of fearing man. And I just thought that was interesting because oftentimes, most of the times, when we're anxious, we are fearing something that is obviously not of the Lord. And so I also found in chapter 6 of our book on When People Are Big and God is Small, how the author, what Edward Welch, was talking about how to fear the Lord, and that looks like us memorizing scripture. But then he also talked about on page 102, he spoke on asking your spouse, children, friends, pastor, elders. You can meet with them, ask them how they've witnessed how awesome God is, and start identifying where the world tries to remake God so that he is more manageable. Ask God to teach you to read his word as a wise person. And I thought that was just an interesting take, just to use community, to be able to be plugged into community where you are learning and seeing how God is working in other people's lives too. I think by doing more of that, that takes away the fear of man that anxiety can be produced from, and that ultimately points us to fearing the Lord. And yes, reading scripture is so important. I just thought it was neat, and a practical, easy win was just to get involved in community and to ask them how God is working in their lives. I think that helps you see a bigger picture. And then in the lecture about decision making, I thought it was really a great lecture in the ways of where Dr. Park was explaining how, sometimes we're in a situation and the Bible doesn't say exactly like you must do this, but the principles aren't necessarily explicit, but the principles are there. And so you just have to search in scripture on that certain topic. And so it's so important to go back to scripture and look at what it has to say about the circumstance or the issue. Look at it from that lens and then make your decision. And ultimately, you will have a decision that is based on scripture. And so I thought that was super helpful, because I think oftentimes, at least in my life, I am looking for an explicit answer from scripture, but to be able to look at it in this way was super helpful. And also being able to help others with that mindset, kind of shifting that, I think is awesome. And so even when you're counseling someone else, going through what scripture really talks about on the issue will really help them and also free them up to make a decision and not have them feel so bogged down by they have to make this exact right decision, but to know that they can ultimately trust God and trust his word and everything will be all right. So that's what I learned. Thank you guys for listening. Have a great rest of your week.